How you guys doing? My name is Chris Matthews. I'm a relationship coach and licensed marriage and family therapist. In this video, I'm going to break down John Gottman's 4 Horsemen. John Gottman is a PhD researcher who's been in the field of marriage and family therapist for over 40 years. He's won multiple awards, and he's most famous for his ability to predict divorce with 90% accuracy. He uses these 4 horsemen to predict if a couple is going to stay together or divorce. And he's done that over 40 years. And he uses these different characteristics I'm going to present to you today. The first characteristic that Dr. Gottman uses is criticism. So criticism is different than complaining. A criticism is really about attacking your partner's character, attacking who they are. And that could look like when a person uses always, or if they say never. You always disappoint me. You're never on time. You never consider my feelings. At that point, you're criticizing your partner. A complaint, on the other hand, is a direct, specific action that you're stating that you dislike. So if you said to your partner, when you forgot to call me after work, it made me feel like I wasn't thought or cared for. At that point, it's a specific action. You're not speaking to the foundation of who your partner is. You're not questioning if they love you. You're describing something they specifically did that hurt you. The second horseman or factor that Gottman uses to predict divorce, contempt. Out of all the 4 horsemen, contempt is the single greatest predictor of divorce. The reason why is because contempt goes even beyond criticism. When you are in contempt toward your partner, it's usually based off of years or a long time frame of being disappointed. And that can look like someone who is disrespectful to their partner, mocks their partner. You're essentially at that point emotionless. I've been in couples counseling and I've seen a partner say something that's almost hateful or is hateful to the other person. And the person is bawling and crying and they have a bleak look on their face. They're tapped out. And that's why, I personally believe that's one of the greatest predictors, because when there's contempt, there's no hope. It's almost as if the person has closed their minds off to ever loving and caring about that person again. And it comes out in ways where it's going to be quicksand, in the sense that the more the person tries to get close to that individual, if they're in a position of contempt, they're going to even be more hateful. So that's one I always try to observe and look for in couples when I initiate the therapeutic process. The 4th horseman, defensiveness. And defensiveness is very common. I would say that every couple I've worked with as a couples counselor, even in my own marriage, there's defensiveness, because we innately don't want to be put in a bad light. And we naturally want to explain ourselves. So there are 4 different types of defensive behaviors. And I talk about these more in some of my courses and videos that I have as well, past videos. But I just want to break down the 4 different types real quick. Deflecting. So deflecting behaviors look like redirecting fault or blame. And that could look like when your partner accuses you or brings something to your attention, you're then making out to be their fault. Well, and I've done this before. I'm not proud of it, but my wife will say, you were late waking up. And I'll say, why didn't you wake me up then? And it's like, I'm not being accountable for me being late. I'm deflecting the responsibility of waking up back on her. The second type of defensive behavior is explaining. And explaining looks like interrupting abruptly, cutting your partner off, and trying to provide some quick explanation for why you did do something or didn't do something. I used the example in another video how when a referee calls a foul on the play, the player who he accused of the foul is always trying to explain their position. Now, I've watched a lot of sporting events. I very rarely, if ever, have seen the player explain their position and the referee go, oh, you know what? You're right. No foul. That typically doesn't happen. Now, every now and again, and then they'll review the footage, but for most times, it doesn't happen. So if it doesn't happen in sporting events, it's not going to happen in your marriage. You're not going to usually be able to explain yourself and your partner go, oh, you're right, I don't feel the way I feel anymore. So that's why it's defensive behaviors. Now, there is a time and a place to listen to your partner, understand where they're coming from, and then at that point you can respond. But when you prevent your partner from sharing how they feel and you immediately cut them off, that's where the behavior becomes defensive. The next defensive behavior is safeguarding. That looks like providing the facts or the evidence. And a lot of times we do that because we're trying to show that our decision wasn't as bad. If it makes your partner feel a certain way, then they're not going to care about the facts at that point. Last, justifying. When we justify, we're trying to make an excuse or a reason. And instead of just being accountable, that's what justification looks like usually. So if I was late picking my son up from school, I'm going to justify the fact that the client that I was working with prior to leaving the office was more important than being on time. So I may say to my wife, well, don't you care about us getting more revenue? In other words, I'm justifying versus saying, you know what, honey, you're right. I was late. I didn't plan my schedule accordingly. I allowed this client to take additional time and I was late getting my son. At that point, that's what it was. I'm not trying to defend the position. I'm not trying to explain. I'm just acknowledging that that's what happened. And that's usually what your partner really needs. People don't argue when there's nothing to argue with. If you provide your partner with that simple response of just being accountable for whatever the action is, usually they're going to say, oh, okay, and the conversation's over. Instead, what we like to do is provide one of these 4 defensive techniques. We either deflect, explain, safeguard, or justify, and then the fight ensues. The 4th and final horseman that Gottman talks about that can lead to divorce, stonewalling. I see stonewalling a lot in therapy because it's really a self-preservation technique. If your partner is spewing things at you that are emotionally evoking and you don't know how to control or contain how you feel, you're going to naturally just shut down. I like to use the phone analogy, how when your phone overheats, I have an iPhone, so when it overheats, I leave it in the car sometimes in the summer and I come back, the phone is letting me know that it won't work until it cools down first. And that's equivalent to stonewalling. The difference is the phone gives me an alert. The phone's telling me what's happening. It's letting me know, hey, I've overheated. I need time to calm down so then I can be functional for you. That's the same response you can give your partner instead of stonewalling. If your partner has flooded you emotionally and you need to take space, say that. Hey, if we keep going, I'm going to step out of character and say something mean or hurtful, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to step away for a couple minutes and then come back. If you choose to take space, let your partner know where you're going to be, how long you're going to be there, and then it's your responsibility to reinitiate when you come back and the space taking time is over. If your partner requests space, make sure you allow them to take that space. That doesn't look like calling them every 5 minutes and asking when the space time is over. It doesn't look like following them into the room. It looks like allowing them to do what they need to do so they can be prepared to re-engage with you. I hope this video is helpful because criticisms, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling can and do lead to divorce and breakup if they're not properly treated with relationship coaching or counseling. Once again, this information comes from Dr. John Gottman's 4 Horsemen, and my name is Chris Matthews, and I hope this video was helpful. Please subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the other side. You can never go back.